Isn't it crazy that what we know about love comes from make-believe movies, our parents who might not always be the best role models, and the media that often exaggerates drama to get us to click on their stories? Yet it's been said that to love and be loved is the greatest pursuit of humanity. So we're all focused on this one thing that no one has taught us correctly about. Nice. Thankfully, today we're diving into the 8 Rules of Love written by Jay Shetty. And no, this isn't a book about pickup lines or how to get them to text you back, but rather the course we all needed yet missed out on about love. Lucky for you, I'm here to make it very simple because it's not just about reading, but actually putting it into action. So today, you'll also be given tasks along the way. The 8 rules of love are divided into 4. Preparing for love, practicing love, protecting love, and perfecting love. Rule 1, part of preparing to love, is to let yourself be alone. Let that sink in. What's the difference between loneliness and solitude? But even just mentioning them gives off a different vibe. The goal is to go from loneliness to confident solitude, where you know yourself, your desires, and values. This also means spending enough time alone to identify your strengths and weaknesses and knowing exactly what you bring to the table when there's a partner to share life with. The coolest part about this book that sets it apart from all the others in the love and personal development space is the actionable task he shares after each rule. There's more examples, but you can start off by doing a solo audit of your time spent alone. How does it feel? What were you doing? And did you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? And why? Moving on to rule 2 out of 8. Don't ignore your karma. Using your past as something to learn from versus something to repeat is incredibly important, especially when it comes to love. We're used to hearing that people tend to look for what they're used to, whether that's good or bad. So let's say you grew up with parents that weren't present. Your subconscious might attract a person that is constantly working or away frequently because that's what's familiar to you. And the same vice versa. Since you're aware and reject that so strongly, you're looking for a partner who will be present in absolutely everything that you do. That's also not the goal. The goal in preparing yourself for love is identifying everything from the past, being aware, and able to change it from a middle standing point, not repeating it or avoiding it completely. To put it in action, try this exercise that Jay shares in chapter 2 of the book. Write down any movie or love song that has impacted or changed the way you feel about love. For example, if the first thing that comes to mind are those songs that always mention how the guy left the partner for another woman, it could be that this is so stuck in your mindset and your vision of what's love that it could be showing up and shaping your story in your current or future relationship. From here, we move on to part 2, which is practicing love. Rule 3 is to define love before you feel it, think it, and say it. The practice of love is broken down into a cycle of 4 that doesn't always happen in order, but it is a cycle we repeat with anyone who plays an important role in our lives. The 4 parts are attraction and dreams, struggle and growth, and trust. Attraction and dreams tend to happen during the first few dates. If you're into the person's personality, then there's attraction. However, it's crucial to be so aware at this stage so that attraction doesn't cloud that dream phase. In the dream phase, it's about tackling false expectations rather than just sitting on a cloud of what the relationship could lead up to. This quote is one of my favorites from the entire chapter. How you handle your differences is more important than finding your similarities. Part 3 of the cycle, the struggle and growth phase, is probably the one that most relationships want to avoid. But at the end, it's the key part to not only falling in love, but staying in love. This phase is also very important because it's when you realize if something is a deal breaker or if it's something that you're willing to face together. It could be that your partner likes spending money, traveling to new destinations, when for you, the goal at this stage of your life is to save up for a new house. It's about realizing if it's a deal breaker for your partner to travel, and if it's a deal breaker for you to save up for that new home, or if one of you is willing to let that go. Having those tough conversations and making decisions leads to phase 4, which is trust. We often think it's all or nothing when it comes to trust. You trust or you don't trust at all. But the reality is there's different types of trust and different levels of trust that ultimately is built up with time. There's physical, mental, and emotional trust. As each pillar of trust gets built up and creates a connection like no other between yourself and your partner, and that opens the doors to rule number 4. Rule 4 is that your partner is your guru. I know, I had to read that again too. What does that even mean? Jay Shetty writes that a guru isn't the typical coach, teacher, or guide that we oftentimes associate guru with. A trusting and growing relationship should be a back and forth of both members being students and gurus to one another. By focusing on choosing a partner you can grow with, you're ensuring to always continue learning. A guru leads by example, not by nagging. Oftentimes in a relationship, it's common to complain and be upset because you expected your partner to be this or that. What we don't realize is that those comments don't stem from a relationship, but rather a dynamic of ownership. Ownership comes from wanting to have control, wanting others to do what you want them to do. And that's definitely not a healthy relationship. Your goal is to help your partner get to the next step of their own journey, not the journey you think they should be on. A great tool to put this into action is determining your partner's learning style. Is it hearing, watching, thinking, or doing? The more you know, the better you become at guiding them towards their goal. Keep in mind, nobody wants a teacher that is yelling at them and constantly nagging on what the students should do. It's so common to hear that the couple just fell apart, but bringing this rule to life should do the opposite. And something we don't usually hear, that couple grew together. Rule 5 is knowing that purpose comes first. In every relationship, there are 3 relationships: the relationship with each other, the relationship with your own purpose, and lastly, the relationship with each other's purpose. When each person in the relationship is focused on pursuing their own purpose, it adds more value to the relationship. This also means that both partners need to know their own purpose, what they value, and how they're most authentic to themselves. If one person has a deep purpose and the other doesn't, this could lead to a sense of envy or even a sense of not wanting to distract the other person and then ending up distancing just for that reason. If you're currently feeling lost and without a purpose, try these next steps that Jay mentions. Learn. Devote time to learning. Experiment. Use what you've learned and test what works for you and what doesn't. Thrive. Get good at repeating what you've been doing. Struggle. Face challenges that come and use them for growth. Win. Celebrate both big and small victories towards your goal. Purpose stems from curiosity, and that means always starting with step 1 and learning all that you can. And one of the tasks Shetty shares in this chapter comes in handy for all of those that say they can't find their purpose because they don't have enough time. Make an inventory of your spare time. Personally, I did this using the Toggle Track application that you can have on your computer or on your phone and track absolutely everything that you're doing to the minute. Oftentimes we don't realize where our spare time is going, but having this time track log can really give you a full picture, and you pretty much only have to track your time for a week to see where your spare time is going. Rule 6 is that you win or lose together. We think arguing is bad. However, no matter how compatible the couple is, to live in a conflict-free bliss isn't love. It's avoidance. There are 3 types of arguments. Pointless arguments that come from an energy of ignorance. They typically occur at the wrong place and wrong time. And there's no interest in finding a solution because most of the time, no one knows the point of it. The fastest way to settle this type of agreement is to acknowledge it and let it go. The second type of argument is a power argument. Power arguments emerge from passion and usually are driven by the ego. Therefore, the person leading the argument believes it's only their way or the highway, and the majority of time are looking to convince the other person rather than resolve the issue at hand. The third type of argument is a productive argument. This is a type of argument that relationships should be having because there's a conflict to overcome together. Resolutions from this type of argument lead to both partners being happy with the solution, but of course, this requires intention, perspective, and love from both partners. Next time there's an argument, think of this quote: every time one of you loses, you both lose. Every time the problem loses, you both win. Identify your and your partner's fighting style by taking the quiz at www.fightstyles.com and then openly making a game plan for how to have productive arguments from here on out. Rule 7 is that you don't break in a breakup. This chapter gives so much insight on what causes breakups, how to deal with them, and ultimately why couples end up in this position. The four most common are control, infidelity, inertia, or disinterest. There seems to be 3 choices that people make when stuck in a relationship. Number 1 is to choose to grow and elevate the relationship. Number 2 is to separate. And lastly, number 3, which should actually not even be a choice, is to continue as they are. It's important to remember that if you go with option 2, to separate, even though it might seem like you're breaking, you're not. What is breaking is what you thought you were building with the other person. You existed before the relationship and you'll exist afterwards. In this chapter, Jay recommends writing a love letter to yourself to help you heal. Last but not least, rule 8 is to love again and again. The way to perfect your love is not by waiting to find it or have it, but by creating it with everyone all the time. We seem to always tie love to a romantic partner when love is so much more. Having a partner isn't the end goal. The goal is to look beyond yourself and serve others. There's no reason to limit love to a partner and friends and family when you can spread love to even bigger and wider groups. Instead of expecting love, find ways of expressing love. What if next time you entered a room, you asked yourself, how can I give love to everyone here today? You can seek love your whole life and never find it. Or you can give love your whole life and experience happiness. If you've already read the book, go ahead and drop your thoughts down below. And if this episode left you hungry to know more, the book link is down below in the description.